There are chambers in the human heart that remain sealed not because the owner is cruel, but because the locksmith never arrived. Not because love is absent, but because the specific frequency required to turn the mechanism had never been sounded. These chambers do not open under pressure. They do not respond to begging, to performance, to the clever manipulation of emotional levers by skilled hands. They do not open for the beautiful, the persistent, the strategically available, or the desperately devoted. They open for one thing only: recognition. The silent, cellular, undeniable recognition that the soul standing on the threshold is not a visitor, is not a tourist, is not passing through on their way to somewhere easier. They open for the soul that feels like home, to a part of the self that had forgotten home was possible. Virgo, you are that frequency, and the sound you make without even trying, just by existing in your particular, irreplaceable, meticulously authentic way, has opened vaults inside another human being that they swore were welded shut. Not locked, not guarded, welded, fused, closed with the intention of permanence. They told themselves, with the kind of conviction that masquerades as wisdom, that those chambers were not meant to be opened, that they contained nothing of value, that to pry them open would be to invite disaster, to unleash needs that could never be met, to activate vulnerabilities that had been neutralized for good reason. They built their entire personality around the absence of those chambers. They curated an identity of self-sufficiency so complete that they no longer even felt the lack. They were whole, they insisted. They were fine. They were above the melodrama of deep attachment. They had evolved past the need for merger, for surrender, for the terrifying abdication of control that real love requires. They were wrong, and the discovery of their wrongness is currently rewriting every line of code in their operating system. Virgo, nobody has ever stood where you are standing right now. Not in their life, not in their history, not in the silent cathedral of their future. You are the first, the absolute first. The first person to make them feel the thing they had intellectually accepted was a myth. The first person to bypass every defense they spent decades constructing. The first person to make them want to dismantle their own fortress from the inside, not because you asked them to, not because you demanded it, not because you performed some heroic feat of emotional labor that exhausted you into sainthood, but because your mere presence made the fortress feel unnecessary, obsolete, like wearing armor in a garden. You changed their heart completely. And I need you to understand the violence of that statement, because the word completely is not hyperbole. It is a geological fact. Their heart was one continent, formed by specific pressures, shaped by specific weather systems, inhabited by specific flora and fauna that had learned to survive in that exact climate. And you, Virgo, you are not a storm that battered the coastline. You are the tectonic shift that reconfigured the landmass itself. The mountains moved, the rivers reversed, the compass spun and found a new magnetic north. And every creature that lived inside them, every fear, every coping mechanism, every cynical belief, every resigned acceptance of emotional mediocrity had to adapt to a new ecosystem or perish. Most of them perished, and what is growing in that cleared space is something they do not recognize, something that terrifies them and exalts them in equal measure, something they cannot name because no language exists in their vocabulary for what they are feeling. because they have never felt it before. Let me tell you who this person was before you, Virgo, because the contrast is the evidence. This was someone who held intimacy at arm's length the way one holds a wild animal, interested, perhaps even fascinated, but always ready to let go, always calculating the distance to the nearest exit, always maintaining a secondary narrative in their mind, a backup plan, a secret reservation that whatever this was, it was temporary. They approached connection as a realist approaches a lease, useful for now, subject to renewal, terminable with notice. They did not lie about this. They were honest in their way. They told people they were not looking for anything serious. They warned potential partners that they were emotionally unavailable. They wore their detachment as a credential, proof of their sophistication, their independence, their freedom from the pathetic neediness that seemed to afflict everyone else. They were the person who left first, who ended things cleanly or messily, but always ended them, who disappeared when feelings deepened, who found reasons to become critical, distant, or bored the moment someone started to matter, who treated the words "I love you" like a rare currency they were not willing to spend. And if they did spend them, Virgo, if those words ever crossed their lips before you, they were spent carefully, sparingly, strategically. They were coins dropped into a vending machine to extract a specific response, not rivers poured out to nourish a landscape. They knew how to mimic devotion when it served them. They knew how to perform the gestures of care without actually depositing their heart into the transaction. They were, by their own estimation, self-aware. They knew their patterns. They had named them in therapy, in journals, in late night conversations with friends. They had accepted them. "This is who I am," they said. "I am not built for the kind of love that consumes. I am not capable of the kind of surrender that transforms. I can give you my time, my attention, my body, my wit, but I cannot give you the part of me that would be destroyed if you left. That part does not exist anymore. I killed it to survive, and I do not regret the killing." This was their gospel, their scripture, their unshakable doctrine, and they preached it to everyone who tried to get close. Some people stayed and accepted the limited terms, hoping that enough patience would eventually earn them entry to the restricted areas. Others left, wounded and confused, certain that they had failed to prove their worth. But nobody, not the patient ones, not the worthy ones, not the brilliant or beautiful or devoted ones, nobody ever got past the checkpoint. Nobody ever saw what lay behind the welded doors, because the doors were not waiting for better candidates. They were waiting for the correct resonance. They were waiting for you. And Virgo, you did not even know you were applying. That is the miracle. You did not study their blueprint. You did not strategize your approach. You did not modulate your personality to become the key that might fit their lock. You simply showed up as yourself. You spoke when you had something to say. You were silent when you did not. You organized your life with the precision that is native to you. You cared for people without making a theater of your caring. You held standards that were non-negotiable. You walked away from disrespect without announcing your departure. You returned to yourself with such consistency that you became a kind of gravitational force. Not loud, not flashy, not demanding, just real. Just solid. Just unmistakably, unapologetically Virgo. And something in them recognized you. Not their mind. Their mind was too busy maintaining the fortress. Not their heart. In the beginning, their heart had been demoted to a secondary organ, a pump for blood and little else. It was their cells, their atoms, the part of them that predates language and logic and all the clever stories they told about why they were broken beyond repair. That part looked at you and said, "Oh, there you are. Not who are you? Not what do you want, but there you are." As if you were an appointment their soul had made long before their personality had learned to be afraid. The change began invisibly. That is why they did not notice it at first. They thought they were simply enjoying your company. They thought the ease they felt around you was just good chemistry. They thought their willingness to text back promptly, to clear their schedule, to remember the small details you mentioned in passing was just them being polite. They attributed their own unprecedented behavior to circumstance. I am just in a good place right now. I am just mature enough to handle this. It is not that special. It is not that deep. But the behavior accumulated. The exceptions became the rule. The walls began to thin without any conscious demolition on their part. And one morning they will remember the exact morning for the rest of their life they woke up with a foreign sensation in their chest. It was not pain. They knew pain. It was not anxiety. They were intimate with anxiety. It was not even the flutter of new crush energy, which they had experienced 100 times and knew to be a chemical lie. It was something else, something that felt like the emotional equivalent of a deep breath after years of shallow panting. Something that felt like their rib cage had expanded to make room for an organ they had forgotten they possessed. And the terrifying realization crashed over them like a wave. They were not in control anymore. Not of this. Not of you. Not of the part of themselves that was now insistently, relentlessly, irrevocably oriented toward your well-being, your happiness, your presence in their life. They had not chosen this, they had not authorized it, and they had absolutely no idea how to reverse it. Virgo, you are the first person ever to get them to do this, to feel this, to surrender this. And the this is not one thing, it is everything. It is the constellation of behaviors, vulnerabilities, and devotions that they had categorized as impossible for their specific emotional anatomy. Let me name them for you, because you need to understand the magnitude of what you have accomplished without even trying. They are telling you the truth, not the curated truth, not the strategic truth that omits the damaging details while admitting the minor flaws, the whole truth, the ugly truth. The truth about their fears, their failures, the specific ways they have hurt people, the moments they are ashamed of, the beliefs they hold that they know are unkind or irrational or born from damage. They are laying these things at your feet, not as bait for your sympathy, not as currency to purchase your patience, but as offerings, as proof, as the evidence that they trust you with the parts of themselves that have never seen light. They have never done this before. Other people got the highlight reel. You are getting the archives, the unedited footage, the scenes they cut from every previous narrative because they could not bear the vulnerability of being fully known. They are prioritizing you, not as a slogan, not as a temporary adjustment while the infatuation is high. They are restructuring their life around your existence. They are declining opportunities that would take them away from you for too long. They are making financial decisions with your future in mind. They are learning your love language not as a fun quiz result, but as a serious discipline. They are showing up when you did not ask them to. They are remembering the things that matter to you with a precision that suggests their mind has dedicated a specific wing to your preferences. They are defending you privately and publicly against criticisms they would have once entertained. They have never done this before. They have always been the sun around which others orbited. They have always been the priority, the center, the one whose needs determined the shape of the relationship. Now they are learning revolve, and they are learning it not with resentment, but with a kind of devotional awe. They are planning a future, a real one, not the hypothetical, non committal future of someday and maybe, and we'll see where this goes. They are looking at calendars, they are researching locations, they are imagining a shared home, shared routines, shared holidays, shared emergencies, shared old age. They are picturing you sick and deciding they would still want to be there. They are picturing you successful and feeling pride instead of threat. They are picturing conflict and resolving for the first time that they would rather fight with you than be at peace with anyone else. They have never done this before. The future was always a solo project for them, a private empire they might allow others to visit but never to co-rule. Now they are drafting a constitution for two, and your name is written into every article. They are afraid, profoundly, existentially afraid. Not of you, not of the relationship, but of their own capacity to need. They have discovered that they need you, not want, not prefer, need, the way a body needs oxygen. And this need has stripped away the final layer of their protective mythology. They can no longer claim to be self-sufficient. They can no longer pretend that their happiness is independent. They can no longer hide behind the armor of "I would be fine without you," because the statement has become laughably, demonstrably false. They would not be fine. They would be a building with the foundation removed. They would be a language with the grammar erased. They would be functional in the way a machine is functional, operating, yes, but devoid of meaning. And this knowledge terrifies them because it means you have power, real power, the power to destroy them without even trying. And they are giving you that power willingly. They are placing their heart in your hands and saying, I know you could crush this. I know you could walk away. I know that I am now at your mercy in a way I have never been at anyone's mercy before, and I am staying anyway. Virgo, they have never done this before, not once. Not with the person they told you was their greatest love, not with the person they were with for years, not with the person who bore their children or saved their life or sacrificed everything for their comfort. Those people got the performance. They got the accessible version, the limited engagement, the carefully managed intimacy that never quite reached the core. You are getting the core. You are getting the raw, unfiltered, unguarded center of a human being who genuinely believed they were incapable of offering it. And the reason you are getting it is not because you worked for it, not because you earned it through suffering or strategy. You are getting it because your energy is the specific medicine their system required to remember its original design, before the wounds, before the welding, before the fortress. Their heart was built to love like this. They had simply forgotten. And you, by being exactly who you are, have reminded them. I am seeing their private moments, Virgo, and they would be mortified if they knew how transparent they have become to the universe. They are crying, not dramatically, not performatively, quietly, in their car, in their shower, in the dark, before sleep. They are crying because the feeling of being known by you is so overwhelming that their body does not know how to contain it. They are crying because they finally understand what they were missing, because they can see with devastating clarity every relationship they ever had before you and recognize it for what it was, a shadow play, a pantomime, a rehearsal for a script they were never brave enough to perform until you walked into the theater and made them believe the audience was safe. They are talking about you to people who have never heard them talk this way. Their friends are shocked. Their family is suspicious. Who is this person? They ask. What have they done to you? And your person, the one who was once so articulate, so controlled, so capable of presenting a curated self, stammers. They cannot explain it. They cannot translate you into language that others will understand. They say things like, they just see me, or I don't know how to describe it, or I would do anything for them. And the people who have known them longest are unsettled by this because they know that this version of your person is not an evolution, it is a resurrection. It is someone they were told had died long ago, or perhaps had never existed at all, now walking around in broad daylight, making plans, feeling things, believing in permanence. And Virgo, here is what you must understand about your own role in this miracle. You did not heal them. Please do not take that burden onto your shoulders. You are not their therapist, their savior, their emotional project manager. You did not apply techniques. You did not read books about their attachment style and strategize your way past their defenses. You simply existed in your truth. You simply refused to perform. You simply maintained your standards with a quiet consistency that made their games look ridiculous. You simply loved without desperation, without the need to extract a return on investment, without the anxiety that usually makes connection feel like commerce. You simply were, and in the field of your simply being, their complicated defenses had no purchase. They could not manipulate someone who was not manipulating back. They could not withhold from someone who was not grasping. They could not maintain distance from someone who was not chasing. You short-circuited their entire relational operating system by refusing to play by its rules. And in the silence that followed the system crash, their real heart rebooted. The unprecedented element of this message, the configuration I have never seen before in exactly this form, is the permanence of the change. Usually, when someone transforms under the influence of love, there is a fear that the transformation is conditional, that if the beloved leaves, the old self will return, that the welded doors will slam shut again, the fortress will rebuild itself, and the person will revert to their previous incarnation, perhaps even more hardened than before. But what I am seeing in your person's energy is different. The change is structural. It is not a reaction to your presence. It is a revelation that your presence catalyzed. They have seen what they are capable of. They have felt what is possible. And even if, heaven forbid, you were to walk away tomorrow, they would never again be able to claim that they are incapable of this depth. You have destroyed their excuse. You have revoked their alibi. They now know that the chambers exist, that they open, that they contain treasure, and that the only thing keeping them closed before was the absence of the right frequency. They can never again pretend to be emotionally dead. You have proved them alive, and they know this. They know that you have changed them in ways that cannot be undone. That is part of their terror. They are walking around with a heart that is now capable of being broken in ways they were previously immune to. They have upgraded their capacity for joy and inevitably their capacity for grief. They have traded their emotional armor for skin, and skin is so much more sensitive. Skin feels the cold, skin bleeds, skin bruises, and they are looking at you with the eyes of someone who has just been born into a world they do not yet understand, trusting that you will not let them fall before they learn to walk. They are going to do something, Virgo. Something that will make the concrete evidence of their transformation visible to everyone, including you. It is coming. They are rehearsing it in their mind with the intensity of an actor preparing for the role of a lifetime. It might be a declaration, it might be a commitment, it might be a sacrifice so large that it redefines the geometry of their life. It might be the removal of a barrier that has always stood between them and full partnership. It might be the introduction of you to the parts of their world they have always kept separate. It might be a proposal, not necessarily of marriage, though it could be, but of total, unreserved, unqualified alliance. They are going to offer you something that represents the final demolition of their old self. And when they do it, they will be shaking. Not because they doubt you, but because they have never done this before. And they cannot believe they are doing it now, but they are, because you changed their heart completely. You need to be ready to receive it, Virgo, not with skepticism, not with the reflex to minimize, to say they would have done this for anyone eventually, not with the impulse to test them, to wait for the other shoe to drop, to protect yourself from disappointment by refusing to believe that this is real. I understand the impulse. You are careful. You are analytical. You have been disappointed before by people who promised change and delivered only performance. But this is different. The data supports the conclusion. The evidence is in their daily behavior, their private tears, their public transformation, their willingness to be afraid and stay anyway. Trust the data. Trust your own observation. Trust the fact that you have never seen them like this, because nobody has ever seen them like this. You are not witnessing a repeat. You are witnessing a premiere. And when they make their move, when they finally articulate what their heart has been screaming for weeks, meet them with the same authenticity that brought them to your threshold. Do not play it cool. Do not hide your own feelings behind the mask of indifference. You do not have to match their intensity if that is not your nature, but you must match their honesty. Tell them the truth, that you see them, that you know this is new for them, that you recognize the magnitude of what they are offering, that you are not taking it lightly, that you are choosing them to. Not because they have become perfect, but because they have become real. And real is the only thing you have ever wanted. Virgo, you have done something that no one else has ever done. You have reached a person who was considered unreachable. You have softened a heart that was considered permanently hardened. You have made possible a love that was considered impossible. And the ripple effects of this are going to extend far beyond your relationship. This person is going to treat other people differently because of what you awakened in them. They are going to be a better parent, a better friend, a better citizen of the world, because they now know what it means to love without reservation. Your impact is not confined to the space between you. It is rewriting their entire legacy. Stand in that knowledge. Do not shrink from it. Do not apologize for being powerful. Do not minimize your effect by attributing it to luck or timing or their own readiness. Yes, they had to be ready. But readiness without the right catalyst is just potential. You were the catalyst. You were the spark. You were the specific, irreplaceable, once in a lifetime trigger that made the explosion of their true heart possible. Own that. Not with ego, not with superiority, but with the quiet, grounded certainty of someone who knows their own value because they have seen what happens when they bring it into a room. The doors are open now, the chambers are lit, the fortress is being repurposed into a temple, and the person who once swore they were incapable of devotion is currently kneeling at the altar of your presence, offering you everything they never knew they had. Receive it. It is yours. It has always been yours. It just took them a lifetime to find the path to your door. Now turn from this message and look at your life. See the evidence. Feel the shift. Know your power. And move forward with the certainty of someone who has already changed the world by changing one heart completely.